The story of the Battle of Britain cannot be understood without first seeing the world that led up to it. In 1939, Adolf Hitler's Germany had become the most powerful military machine Europe had ever seen. Through rearmament, propaganda, and ruthless ambition, Hitler aimed to dominate Europe under Nazi rule. Before starting our video, if you love to watch history-related stories about World War II, please subscribe to our channel and like the video, so it helps me to make more good quality videos for you. Let's the story started. On 1 September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. In a matter of weeks, Polish resistance collapsed under the assault of tanks, mechanized infantry, and overwhelming air power. Britain and France, bound by treaty to Poland, declared war on Germany, but neither could intervene effectively. Thus began World War II. By May 1940, Hitler unleashed his new form of warfare, Blitzkrieg, lightning war, against the West. German divisions smashed through the Low Countries, bypassed the Maginot Line, and trapped the British Expeditionary Force, BEF, and much of the French army on the beaches of Dunkirk. From 26 May to 4 June 1940, Britain carried out Operation Dynamo, evacuating more than 330,000 soldiers across the Channel. It was a miracle of survival, but also a disaster. Virtually all of Britain's heavy weapons, vehicles, and supplies were abandoned. France fell 2 weeks later. Hitler stood triumphant over Western Europe. Now only the English Channel separated Nazi Germany from Britain. To invade, Hitler ordered his staff to prepare Operation Sea Lion, a cross-channel landing. Yet he understood one thing clearly. No invasion could succeed unless the Luftwaffe, Germany's Air Force, first gained control of the skies. The Royal Air Force, RAF, had to be destroyed. Now only the English Channel separated Nazi Germany from Britain. To invade, Hitler ordered his staff to prepare Operation Sea Lion, a cross-channel landing. Yet he understood one thing clearly. No invasion could succeed unless the Luftwaffe, Germany's Air Force, first gained control of the skies. The Royal Air Force, RAF, had to be destroyed. Thus the stage was set for the first major campaign in history fought entirely in the air. Britain faced its darkest hour. Europe had fallen. The United States remained neutral, and the Soviet Union was still bound by its pact with Hitler. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, appointed in May 1940, knew the odds were terrible but refused to negotiate. In his stirring speeches, Churchill forged a spirit of resistance. "We shall go on to the end. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall never surrender." The Royal Air Force was Britain's shield. Its fighter command, under Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, possessed about 700 frontline fighters, divided among 4 groups covering different parts of the country. The backbone of these forces were 2 aircraft, the Hawker Hurricane and the Supermarine Spitfire. The Hurricane was rugged, stable, and ideal for destroying bombers. The Spitfire was sleek, fast, and agile, a duelist against enemy fighters. Both were powered by the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, one of the most reliable of the war. Britain also possessed something the Germans did not: radar. Along the coast stood the chain home network of tall masts able to detect incoming aircraft while they were still over France. Information flowed from radar stations to fighter command headquarters at Bentley Priory, where officers tracked raids on huge plotting tables and directed squadrons accordingly. This coordination, known as the Dowding system, was the world's first integrated air defense network. It allowed the RAF to deploy its limited numbers efficiently rather than patrolling aimlessly. Meanwhile, across the Channel, the Luftwaffe was preparing. Commanded by Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, it could field more than 2,500 aircraft. Messerschmitt Bf-109E fighters, fast and heavily armed.
Messerschmitt Bf-110 twin-engine heavy fighters.
Henkel HE-111, Dornier DO-17, and Junkers Ju-88 bombers. Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers for precision strikes. The Luftwaffe had crushed Poland, Norway, and France. Göring believed the RAF would collapse within weeks. He promised Hitler that not a single enemy plane will fly over the Reich. In reality, the challenge was far greater than he imagined. The German fighters' range was limited. Once over southern England, they could remain only minutes before needing to return. The RAF, fighting over home territory, could refuel and rearm quickly. Still, the numbers favored Germany. On 16 July 1940, Hitler issued Directive No. 16, ordering preparations for Sea Lion. The Luftwaffe's mission: destroy Britain's air defenses, gain air superiority, and make invasion possible. The Battle of Britain was about to begin. The Channel Battles. By early July 1940, Britain was under siege. German forces occupied every port along the French coast from the North Sea to the Bay of Biscay. Across the English Channel, invasion barges began to assemble in the harbors of Calais, Boulogne, and Cherbourg. Every day, reconnaissance aircraft from both sides flew over the water, mapping defenses and watching troop movements. The people of southern England could often hear the faint rumble of distant guns or see the white trails of aircraft high above. But Hitler still hesitated. His navy, the Kriegsmarine, had been badly mauled during the Norwegian campaign. Without air superiority, any invasion fleet would be slaughtered by the Royal Navy. So the task fell to the Luftwaffe. Destroy the Royal Air Force, then the path across the Channel would be open. The opening moves. The Battle of Britain began in earnest on 10 July 1940. The first targets were shipping convoys in the English Channel. The Luftwaffe hoped to draw RAF fighters into combat over the water, where any pilot shot down would likely drown before rescue. At this stage, the Germans attacked in small groups, testing British defenses. Bombers struck merchant ships, naval escorts, and coastal ports. The RAF's 11 Group, commanded by Air Vice Marshal Keith Park, bore the brunt of the fighting. The Channel soon became a deadly arena. Hurricanes and Spitfires clashed with Messerschmitts above shimmering waves, twisting and diving through the sky. The Stuka dive bombers, whose sirens screamed as they plummeted toward their targets, were initially effective against ships, but proved easy prey for British fighters once intercepted. The human cost. The pilots of both sides began to learn the harsh reality of modern air warfare. Fights often lasted less than a minute. A single burst of machine gun fire could decide life or death. Many pilots never saw the enemy who killed them. For the RF, losses were heavy but sustainable. The downing system allowed Fighter Command to direct its forces precisely, conserving strength. Radar detected raids early. Squadrons scrambled just in time to intercept. This efficiency frustrated the Germans, who could not understand how the RF always seemed ready. The Channel battles raged for 3 weeks. Neither side gained a decisive advantage. But the Germans noticed something worrying. The RAF refused to die. Their strength appeared undiminished. Göring realized that destroying British shipping was not enough. He had to crush the RAF itself, on the ground, in the air, everywhere. On 1 August 1940, Hitler issued Directive No. 17. The Luftwaffe was to achieve air supremacy with all forces at its disposal. The date set for the Great Offensive was 13 August, codenamed Adlertag, Eagle Day. The Luftwaffe's plan was ambitious: Three air fleets, Luftwaffe 2, 3, and 5, would launch waves of attacks from bases in France, Belgium, and Norway. Their goals: destroy RF airfields and radar stations, bomb aircraft factories and supply depots, break the morale of fighter command. At dawn on 13 August, hundreds of aircraft took off. The roar of engines filled the air over northern France. Squadrons of bombers and fighters soared toward southern England. But poor weather and miscommunication disrupted coordination. Some waves turned back, others arrived hours apart. Still, the attacks were massive. The skies over Kent, Sussex, and Hampshire filled with contrails and smoke. The RAF scrambled repeatedly. Pilots fought up to 4 times a day, landing only long enough to refuel and rearm. Many ran on adrenaline and black tea. Mechanics worked without rest, patching bullet holes, refitting propellers, and sending planes back into combat within an hour. Though the Luftwaffe inflicted serious damage, especially on airfields like Hocking, Manston, and Biggin Hill, the RAF refused to collapse. Radar stations knocked out in the morning were often repaired by nightfall. The British communication system continued to function flawlessly. By late August, both sides were nearing exhaustion. RAF pilots averaged only 4 hours of sleep a night. Losses were grim. Some squadrons replaced half their men in a week. Many new pilots arrived with minimal training, barely enough to survive their first dogfight. The Germans also faced difficulties. The Bf-109 fighters, essential for escorting bombers, had limited range. They could only spend about 15 to 20 minutes over England before fuel forced them home. Without cover, bombers suffered heavy casualties. Yet Goering, confident of victory, believed Britain was on the brink of collapse. He declared, "The British are finished. Their air force will be wiped out within days." He was wrong. As the battle intensified, the world began to notice the courage of the RAF pilots. Most were in their early 20s, some were teenagers. They came from across the Commonwealth and occupied Europe. Britain, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and even the United States. Among them were the legendary Polish 303 Squadron, whose fierce determination and experience made them one of the most effective units of the war. Their battle cry was simple: "For Poland." Life on the ground. Between missions, pilots rested in deck chairs outside their dispersal huts, smoking cigarettes and listening to distant gunfire. Mechanics and armorers toiled beside them, reloading ammunition belts and checking engines. Every hour brought the same tension. The telephone would ring, a controller would shout, "Scramble," and within seconds, the calm airfield became chaos. Engines roared, tires lifted off the grass, and another flight vanished into the sky. By mid-August, the scale of their courage inspired Churchill's most famous speech. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Those words defined them forever, the few. But even as morale soared, the strain was unbearable. The Luftwaffe began focusing attacks on fighter command airfields in southern England. Bases at Kenley, Biggin Hill, and Tangmere suffered devastating hits. Command posts were destroyed, aircraft burned on the ground, and pilots died in their cockpits. Dowding faced an agonizing choice: commit his last reserves or risk losing control of the skies. He chose carefully, conserving fighters for when Germany launched its final assault. That final assault came sooner than expected, and it would change the course of the war. By late August 1940, the Luftwaffe was growing desperate. Despite enormous efforts, the RAF refused to collapse. German intelligence had gravely underestimated Britain's fighter strength. They believed only a few squadrons remained, but in truth, the RAF still fielded over 600 operational fighters. The Luftwaffe's losses were mounting. Many of their best pilots were dead or prisoners of war. Aircraft production in Germany could not keep pace with losses. Yet Hitler refused to admit defeat. He needed a new strategy, something to break the British spirit. On 24 August 1940, a small group of German bombers accidentally dropped bombs on London, killing civilians. The raid was not intentional. Poor navigation led them off course. But Churchill seized the opportunity for retaliation. The next night, the RAF bombed Berlin, the first time the German capital had been attacked. The psychological shock enraged Hitler. He ordered a shift in strategy. Instead of airfields and radar, the Luftwaffe would now focus on London and major cities. The goal was to terrorize the population, crush morale, and force Britain to surrender. At 4 p.m. on Saturday, September 7, sirens wailed across London. Nearly 1,000 German bombers, escorted by 600 fighters, crossed the Channel in the largest raid of the war so far. The target, London's East End, the docks, warehouses, and factories along the Thames. For hours, the city burned. Gas lines exploded, buildings collapsed, and fire crews fought through the night. Nearly 400 people were killed and 1,500 injured in the first raid alone. Yet the British spirit held firm. Civilians took shelter in underground stations, singing songs and sharing food by candlelight. The government distributed gas masks and encouraged people to carry on with work. Keep calm and carry on became more than a slogan. It became a way of life. The bombing continued for 57 consecutive nights. The destruction was immense. London, Coventry, Birmingham, Liverpool, and other cities were pounded relentlessly. Entire neighborhoods disappeared under rubble. But the British people adapted. Anti-aircraft guns, searchlights, and barrage balloons dotted the skies. Families built makeshift shelters in their gardens. The London Underground became a refuge for thousands every night. Churchill often toured the ruins, visiting survivors and encouraging the firemen and rescue workers. His presence inspired the nation. "We can take it," Londoners said proudly, and they did. While the Blitz caused horrific civilian casualties, it gave the RAF something priceless: time. By diverting attacks away from fighter command airfields, the Luftwaffe allowed the RAF to repair runways, rest pilots, and rebuild reserves. The British aircraft factories, untouched by the shift in focus, continued producing new Spitfires and Hurricanes faster than the Luftwaffe could destroy them. Hitler's rage-driven decision, meant to crush Britain, ultimately saved it. By mid-September, the Luftwaffe prepared for one last all-out effort to destroy the RAF and London. Goering ordered massive raids to prove to Hitler that the British defense could be broken. On Sunday, September 15, 1940, the Luftwaffe launched 2 colossal waves of attacks, the largest since Eagle Day. British radar detected them early, and the call went out across fighter command. Nearly every available RAF squadron scrambled into the air. The first wave came just before noon. Hundreds of German bombers and fighters filled the sky above the Thames. Churchill himself was at Fighter Command headquarters at Uxbridge, watching the battle unfold on the operations map. As markers representing enemy formations approached London, he asked Air Vice Marshal Keith Park, "What reserves have we left?" Park replied quietly, "None." Yet the RAF continued to fight with unmatched courage. Hurricanes tore into bomber formations, while Spitfires tangled with the escorting Messerschmitts. Over Kent and South London, civilians watched as dozens of planes twisted through sunlight and cloud. Many cheered from rooftops as German aircraft burst into flames and plunged earthward. By mid-afternoon, the Luftwaffe had lost its cohesion. Bombers, short on fuel and harried by fighters, dropped their loads wildly and fled. A second wave came later in the day and met the same fate. When it was over, the Luftwaffe had lost 56 aircraft. The RAF lost 26. That evening, Churchill told his secretary as they left the bunker, "Don't speak to me. I have never been so moved." He knew, though the battle would continue, that this was the turning point. In the following days, bad weather and losses crippled the Luftwaffe's ability to mount further large-scale attacks. On 17 September 1940, Hitler indefinitely postponed Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain. The plan was never revived. The Luftwaffe shifted to night bombings, the Blitz. But the dream of invading Britain was over. The Battle of Britain had been won. By the end of October 1940, the Luftwaffe had lost around 1,800 aircraft and 2,500 aircrew. The RAF lost 1,023 aircraft and 544 pilots killed. The losses were heavy, but the victory was total. For the first time in World War II, Hitler had been defeated. His invincible image cracked. The myth of unstoppable German domination was shattered. The victory changed the course of history. If Britain had fallen, the world might have followed. Nazi Germany could have dominated Europe unchallenged. The United States would have faced a powerful Axis controlling the Atlantic. But Britain stood firm, providing the base from which the Allies would one day launch D-Day and liberate Western Europe. The Battle of Britain thus became not just a defense of one island, but a defense of freedom itself. The pilots of the RAF became legends. Many did not live to see the victory they achieved. Their average age was just 22. They came from 16 nations, from Britain to Poland, New Zealand to Canada. Their graves now lie scattered across English countryside, silent witnesses to the battle that saved civilization. Churchill immortalized them forever. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. In the years after the war, historians recognized the Battle of Britain as one of the decisive turning points in world history. It was the moment when tyranny met resistance, and resistance prevailed. The war would rage on for nearly 5 more years, bringing horrors across continents. Yet the victory of 1940 ensured that freedom survived long enough to fight back. Today, when Spitfires fly over Britain on Remembrance Days, their sound still carries the echo of that summer, the hum of courage, sacrifice, and hope. Had the RAF failed, the world would have changed forever. But they did not fail. They rose, fought, and triumphed, proving that a free people, united by resolve, can stand against even the most fearsome foe. And so, the Battle of Britain stands as a timeless truth. Courage in defense of liberty can change the destiny of nations. Every story from history teaches us something powerful. If you enjoyed uncovering this untold chapter of World War II, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to History Unfolded. Join our mission to bring forgotten battles back to life. See you in the next story from the past. Till now, you can check our more videos on our channel.